The best Cartoon Network show of all time is Ben 10. No debate, no question at all. Back in middle school, people at lunch would be talking about their favorite shows, and I'd be like, what about Ben 10? And everyone would just kind of stare at me like, I don't know, I just feel like Ben 10 as a whole was kind of slept on as a kid. Like, most people would prefer Codename Kids Next Door, Adventure Time, Teen Titans. Okay, that's kind of valid. Or like Regular Show. Okay, that's valid too, but you get my point. People kind of respect it now, but I always felt like it didn't get the street credit it deserved. The show just went so hard. The theme, the transformations, fights, characters, all just perfect. And don't even get me started on Alien Force Charmcaster. Those episodes were never long enough. But the point I'm trying to make is Ben 10 was a really good show, and I want to talk about a fan favorite who's also kind of not talked about enough. The menace turned hero, Kevin E. Levin. When Kevin's first introduced to the series, he's basically just like an energy absorber. He gets along really well with Ben at first, but then he's all like, hey, let's crash this train that's full of money. And Ben's obviously not cool with that, so they argue and eventually run the ones, essentially starting their iconic rivalry. Kevin absorbs the Omnitrix, gaining access to Ben's forms, and in a later episode goes on to frame him using his own aliens. Later, Kevin mutates from absorbing Ben's powers and becomes sort of a alien Frankenstein, who's pretty strong in combat, but also pretty ugly. As far as the original series goes, that's more or less the extent of Kevin's character. He and Ben go on some adventures, they keep beefing, and eventually Kevin ends up getting trapped in the No Void, which is kind of like an alien prison, dimension, space thing. He gets stuck there for a few years until Ben 10 Alien Force. This right here is prime Ben 10 all around. I don't care what anybody says, this is the prime of Ben 10. Peak character designs, peak aliens, peak fights, peak. So basically, after 5 years, we catch up with Ben, and he decides to put the Omnitrix back on after all these years because of new alien activity going on. Ben and Gwen reconnect, and they run into Kevin, who's somehow escaped the No Void. We see he's still about his bag though, because he's an alien weapons dealer now, and he's dealing to the Forever Knights. Blah blah blah, Kevin basically doesn't get his bread from making the deal, and so he joins the team for revenge, as well as, can you blame him though? Over time, we see his more human side as his relationship with Ben and Gwen gets stronger. We see his priorities shift from power, money, and his car to his friends and his car.
I'll follow you anywhere. Except there! Come on, Gwen, paint job!
But I'ma come clean, his car was pretty hard though. To this day, every time I see one of these on the street, I geek out talking about some, Kevin, is that you? But he's become one of the group and cares about things bigger than himself. We learn that Kevin is what's called an osmosian, which is what gives him his unique abilities, old and new. And that an incident between him and his stepfather hurt his relationship with his mom. Upon learning this, we kinda see where Kevin's outcast mentality comes from. And it's more apparent that he's grateful to Ben and Gwen to be a part of something, a feeling he's never got to really have before. Down the line, Ben gets greedy and tries to unlock the master control of the Omnitrix with Kevin's help, which unfortunately results in a pretty bad accident, turning Kevin back into a Frankenstein of sorts again. Still, not as bad as the first Frankenstein, but I don't know if Gwen is messing with the new look, to be honest. This brings out Kevin's insecurities about being an outcast again, and he views himself as a monster. It's pretty interesting seeing a guy who's normally cool and laid back worry about his image and fitting in. It really humanizes him, lets us know he's just like the rest of us. At the end of Alien Force, while Ben is fighting Vilgax, he initiates the Omnitrix's self-destruct sequence, and he actually followed through. As a kid, I thought this was one of the coldest things I'd ever seen. When he started it, I was like, nah, he's bluffing. If he blows up the watch, there's no show anymore. With no watch, he's not Ben 10 the hero, he's Ben 0. Occasionally the show will try to hit us with some, you're a hero without the watch, Ben, and I hear that, but good luck beating Vilgax with those noodle arms. My man has never seen the inside of a gym. But after he blows up the watch, Kevin returns back to normal, revealing that the watch was keeping him in that state. And he's normal Kevin again, until Ben 10 Ultimate Alien, when Agregor comes along. Now this guy was Thanos before Thanos. But JTP, Thanos in the comics is way older than—
We do not care.
So basically this dude is an osmosian, just like Kevin, right? And there's these aliens who have taken refuge on Earth, and he's going around collecting and absorbing them like infinity stones. Upon meeting Agrigor, Kevin sympathizes with him to an extent about the lust for power. He knows how it feels to crave it, and he doesn't want that for anyone else. But this talk does little to nothing, and they ultimately fail to keep Agrigor from acquiring all the aliens. After the watch was destroyed, Ben upgraded to the Ultimatrix, but they still reach a point where they run out of options to stop Agrigor, so Kevin absorbs the watch in order to be able to stop him. Going into it, he knows full well Osmosians are powered fiends, but he sacrifices his sanity to protect his friends, which is a kind of weird concept, but I respect it. He succeeds in stopping Agrigor, but as expected, he kinda goes off the rails. He leaves Ben and Gwen so he can keep them out of harm's way. Still, he goes out of control, and Ben has a pretty edgy phase where he's like, we gotta take care of Kevin by any means necessary. Gwen's not going for it though, she still has hope for him and wants to help him. Kevin is a lucky guy, Gwen's a keeper, do not let her go. Long story short, Gwen convinces Ben to stop Kevin without hurting him too bad, and they're able to turn him back to normal. Kevin's an interesting character because even though he grows, we see his constant struggle to stay on the side of good. And in my opinion, that's pretty realistic. Because even though people change, an intentional change has to be a constant effort, and we slip up all the time. Kinda reminds me of Vegeta when he goes through his Majin thing. His character archetype is just the most broken. Bad guy turned good is always a hit, it never misses. Kevin, Vegeta, Zuko, all clean. Kevin's powers are clean, his car is clean, and he bagged Gwen. It's obvious why this guy is the best character in the show. Also, side note, if you guys remember him, this guy, Michael Morningstar, is the absolute worst. I could not stand this guy. How you come out the womb and your mother names you Michael Morningstar? What's a Morningstar? That's just the sun. That doesn't even make sense. You're just Michael's son. You're not cool, and no one likes you. But yeah, that's all I got. So, same time next week, and peace.
Smoking up back. Hey, yeah. Hey, bitch, show me that back. Hey, what? Hey, I'm blowing up fast. Yeah.